Well, hello there and welcome back to the very latest episode of my Love Machine podcast. Now, are you ruining your chances of finding love? If you're single and looking for love, you may be inadvertently self-sabotaging your chances of finding a partner. Whether it's your dating habits, your lifestyle choices, or your everyday attitude, there are certain things that can make it harder to find a mate. If you're wondering if you are ruining your chances of finding love, you're going to love this podcast today, because my guest today is the wonderful Jolene Beaton, and she is the author of the book, Dating Explained, It's Not Them, It's You. And Jolene is a matchmaker and a date coach with 15 years experience for the largest nationwide introduction service. And she's also the author of this book, as I mentioned, and I'm very, very pleased to have her here. Jolene, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you so much for that lovely introduction. I'm excited to get started.
I'm excited as well. We spoke yesterday off podcast to sort of get to know each other, had an amazing chat, and you fascinated me being very much aligned on the things that we talk about. So the very first thing to do, people that don't know, can you tell everyone a bit more about your background, how you got into being a dating coach and a matchmaker? That's probably the starting point.
Yeah, absolutely. I actually talk a little bit about this in my book, is that I wish it was some glamorous story about how I became a matchmaker, but it is, I found myself in need of a job, and I was a very person who kind of believed in it's who you know. So I had this great girlfriend in my life, and she was always kind of bouncing around to different corporations. She found this wonderful corporation in the US called It's Just Lunch, and they had been around for 20 years at the time. And I had heard of them. I thought, what a great way to meet people, blind dates, kind of exciting and structured. Right. So, and this is before online really existed. So I think Match.com was just coming to the scene. And she said, you got to go work there. You'd be a great matchmaker. And so I dug into matchmaking for the first 6 years of my career or so. And I became fascinated with the people's stories. Why would it work so easily for some people? And for others, it seemed like impossible, So I became fascinated with it, and I dug into the coaching aspect, where I could really brainstorm with clients one-on-one and say, hey, tell me about who you are. Let me find out what's so lovable about you. And then let me tell you how to productively turn that into a date.
That's amazing. That's pretty much what I do as well. So that's why we're so aligned in this. I wasn't sure if you're going to mention the name of the company, so I was going to crowbar the words "It's Just Lunch" into this podcast to see how you reacted.
Yeah.
So that's why. But it is, of course, them. I've heard of them. They've been going a long, long time, haven't they?
Yeah, we're 31 years this year, and
wow.
The business model. It's great. It's a higher price point model. People come, they invest in themselves. People spend so much money on their health, their fitness, their education, their businesses. But I feel like there's a real lack of investing a lot of time and money into their dating. And so the individuals that come to a service like this, they're serious. They're the real deal, and they are open and open-hearted, and they're up for the challenge, so I think there's something to that.
I do very much. I think that a lot of people nowadays don't invest in this because they go onto the apps, and the apps are pretty much free, aren't they, to start with? And people are used to not investing it, getting something for nothing. But then they realize very, very quickly that this isn't the best way of meeting for everybody. And they think, what do I do next? And then they turn to matchmakers because they shortcut the whole process. That's what you do, isn't it? You find them success and you help them along the way and give them the best chance of meeting a match.
Well, and really what's so funny about that is often, even with some of the clients I'll work with, they'll be so turned off from online dating by the time they get to us. And I will eventually turn them back on to online dating, because there's fantastic people online, and there's a lot more than with most matchmaking services. So they just also need to know, how do I do that right? Is there a better way?
Yeah. I had a client just now, right before this session, and she's joined a matchmaking agency, spent a lot of money on that, and she's invested in it. And the question she asked me, should I go back on the apps alongside this? And I said, yes. I think do all you can. Absolutely do all you can, because we're talking today about things people do wrong, aren't we, as well, and how they sabotage themselves. A lot of people will join a matchmaking agency, and they will just sit back and wait for the dates to come to them, do nothing about it in their own life. which is great, but it's not going to get you quick results. Or they will go onto the apps and then not invest in anything more. By merely having a profile, they think it's magically going to attract the right person on a dating app.
Absolutely. Yeah, we see it all the time, and then people even at that invested at the high price point, now they're too attached to the money and to the service working, quote unquote. And then it has to be, it's so odd to tell a client, hey, I know you just spent all this money, but you need to find value for yourself in this process if you don't end up in a relationship, because the odds are, if you're looking at statistics, not everybody that joins a matchmaking service ends up in a relationship exclusively. So how are you going to take these skills or learn about yourself and then translate that into the rest of your life?
Absolutely. Just a matter of interest. I don't mean any particular company, just generally across the board. What do you think is really the success rate with someone joining a matchmaking agency in terms
I would say not. I would say to end up in a relationship, I don't know. If I had to guess,
the pause says it all, doesn't it?
I know. I'm like 1/3. It is, because here's what I think. I think the people who are going to end up in a relationship, I can peg them. The moment that they are on the phone with me, this person is going to have zero problems because they are just, I don't know, winners. They have that winning attitude. They're
energy, isn't it?
Yeah, it's an energy. They want it. They like people. They really aren't negative. If I have someone negative, I'm like, gosh, we have so much work to do. If you have someone and I don't mean like overly positive, but just that's like, hey, I am a good person. I really want to love someone. I'm open. I like connecting with people. Almost always you're like, okay, this is going to work.
Yeah.
And it does. So I find that this, what you and I are talking about today, this self-sabotage, that's the only thing from holding people back from date. It's not the dating services that aren't working. It's the people that are joining them. They haven't figured out the thing that's going to make it work for them.
They haven't, but no one's taught them about. No one's shown them how to do that, have they? People don't know.
Well,
so how would you help them?
Well, so for a long time in my work and I think how one of the ways I ended up being in this role I am now as a date coach, and then, what led to writing this book was I was kind of the henchman around the office. So people would say, hey, I know they'd read all the feedback from a client, say, this person's amazing. I don't know how to tell them, the one thing that's sticking out, right? The pattern. Will you do it? So I became known as this person that would learn how to tell people the kind truth, to say, hey, and truth is, let's take it with a grain of salt. But it would be things like, people calling me and they're like, I'm successful, I'm tall, I'm in shape, I'm healthy, they'd run down the list of what a catch they are. And then they'd say, please, 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 Jolene, just tell me, what am I doing wrong? And I would say something like, listen, you're not doing anything wrong. Your teeth are messed up. And they would be like, what? I'd be like, you need to go fix your teeth. And they would be jaw dropped, right? That they're like, that's what's been holding me back. Like, as far as I can tell, everybody likes you. They just don't want to kiss you. And their mind would be blown. So it started to become things like these flaws that were supposed to be loved and accepted for. In the dating world, it was such a showstopper because you only have, 45 minutes, an hour to meet someone to make this impression, right? Yeah. So another example, I would come across is, someone that was like, had a lot of weight on, right? But like vanity pounds, not so much like medical problem, but like vanity pounds, everybody would want to date them, but it was just the body that they weren't attracted to.
That can be fixed, that concept.
Well, yeah, I think so. I mean, that's probably the hardest chapter in the book for me to write was this, this like, have you done everything to get your mind and body right? And that is a lot of what I do talk about. Or someone who's a compulsive talker or talks about themselves, it's a challenge to look at them and say, hey, you are a compulsive talker. You talk about yourself the whole time, and it's turning everybody off. And the ego doesn't want to let us believe, right? That we need to change something that we probably feel lovable for. So this is that book, this is, it is not.
Tell me more about this book. What made you write this book, and how long did it take you?
So it took me about, actually, oddly, in 2019, December, I decided to take on this challenge, 1 year, no beer. So no alcohol challenge for a year. And you get really bored on the weekends because you're like, well, I've worked out, I've cleaned my house, there's like nothing, you're not going to any parties. And so I was like, you know what, I'm going to write a book. I love reading. That's how I take in my information. I have all of this knowledge. Let me package it, for people. And so I started writing. So it only took me like 90 days to write the manuscript, but then 2 years to really have it formed into what it is, and publishable. And I'm very proud of it. It is, there's parts of it where it talks about the mechanics of a good date, and it talks about storytelling. It talks about how to handle tough questions. When you're faced with a question that's uncomfortable, how do you authentically answer it in a truthful way, but that's productive of a date, not sharing intimate details that aren't necessary or relevant, right? Yeah. It goes into how to create a date. Logistics will stop people all the time. They're too busy. They're unavailable. They don't, they'll go on these dinner dates after dinner date after dinner date and never, you and I talked about this yesterday, create an adventure. Let's go connect.
That's the interesting thing, because I think going for lunch is a terrible idea for a date. Personally, I know you probably can't comment on that, but I think it's terrible. And I used to work for a company with a very similar name in the UK. But going for lunch, you're just fitting someone in your lunch break when you should get on with work. It's true. I think going for coffee is terrible. People sabotage these things. And I had a client earlier today. She got out for a 3-hour meal with someone in the evening, and then they didn't really feel a connection after. But they got on really well, but not in that way. I think 3 hours is too long, but I think 45 minutes isn't enough either. If you've got to go back to work again after. So tell me your thoughts. How else do people sabotage the first date?
I think for a big thing I see for women is, let's say they are asked out on a date, and the gentleman, which most of my women want to, they want to be pursued. They want the man to lead. And so you have this man leading, and he says, I'd love to get to know you better. Can you do Saturday? And she says, no, I can't do Saturday. And then that's it, and this is all via text. And so I think one of the ways people self-sabotage is they don't say, I can't do Saturday, but I could do Tuesday. I can do next Saturday. I can do Sunday, or at minimum, hey, my schedule's busy right now, but just know that I am going to make an effort to get to know you because I thought we had a connection. So, just communicating, using the words, not holding back. I think people self-sabotage maybe because they're waiting for another connection that feels more right. And they're passing on the person that's putting in effort. And I know you probably feel exactly the same way. For me, effort is all. I would take effort over chemistry. I would hold out for both effort over chemistry, but I would date effort over chemistry every time.
Absolutely, because that means someone's making an effort and they are caring about what you think and caring about the outcome. That's what it is.
They're going to make a great partner, possibly, right? Like people that put in effort, they're dedicated.
One of the things people do, you mentioned just now, is that they will faff around making arrangements to see each other. All it takes is a 10-minute call the very first time you meet someone, 10-minute phone call, and you can arrange a date there and then what's going on. There is no need to text someone, are you free Tuesday? No, I'll get back to you, I'll check my diary. If you're on the phone talking to someone, you can check your diary there and then see when you're available, and your stars will align that way. That can happen. But people do that, I see that all the time. They just wait weeks and weeks and weeks and become pen pals, particularly if they met from a dating sites and dating apps, not meeting people. Because as you mentioned, perhaps they are holding out for someone else, someone better, more interesting to come along. But if you're not feeling it with this person, don't lead them on anyway. I think people tend to lead people on and you probably touched upon this in your book, I'm sure, and they will date people just for the fear of not meeting someone else, and they will settle.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I started helping people and saying, hey, let's look at, instead of settling or using I don't want to settle, or I deserve better, more, whatever, starting to look at it like, I'm going to stay open for something that feels really inspired or feels really right, and that's why the book is about, it does give these tips and tricks, and it helps you create your own bio, right? Sit down and write one, and say, why would someone be madly in love with me? Who am I? So you'd be shocked. You probably wouldn't be shocked, but maybe some of the listeners would be shocked that people can't answer a simple question like, what do you want? Who are you? What scares you?
They really can't. I ask my clients these sort of questions every day, and no one's ever asked them before. No one's ever challenged them on these questions, and they don't know. And they said, that's a good question. And then they will pause and they will stumble around trying to think of an answer. Then I have to guide them towards it. Because it's always about, what can I get out of somebody else, isn't it? It's what can they offer me to make my life happier? Your life should be enough, and that's what it is. And therefore, you need to know your own value. And people that can't understand what they have to offer, why someone even want to date them in the first place, are not going to make good choices. So what can you recommend in terms of advice about being the best version of yourself and being open to the whole process and being more lovable?
I would say that the number one thing is removing the idea of date almost when you're meeting someone new, and just going with the mindset that, I want to see what is unique about this person. As matchmakers and date coaches, we spend 45 minutes with someone. I guarantee you, we can both tell you 70 things that are incredible about this person. Yeah. But, and when my dating experience was much like that, I walked away from these dates not thinking, is this the person for me? But wow, that person is so interesting, so cool, very unattached from the outcome. And so I think that that's the mindset that everybody needs to go into, is who all they're doing is seeking to understand who is this person? What's unique about them? And sometimes you do have to do some effort. You have to ask some questions. Not everybody is going to rise to the level of conversation that you want them to. They're not there to entertain you, so but why not entertain them? Why not bring more to the table?
I think so. If you're good company, if you're showing an interest in them, they'll want to spend more time with you. Yes. It's as easy as that, isn't it?
It is. I love that you just said that. If you're good company, right? Be good company. That's as simple as that.
I'm going to have that one for my next book, I think.
Yeah.
How to be good company. But before you do it.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's great. It's great. Title. Yeah. So this book, is for someone who, like I said, there is a lot of dating 101. But, the nuts and bolts of it is the common things I see in feedback from thousands of singles that you're not told, that you're not getting, right? So you're able to see yourself through what other singles might think of you. So you might have 4 or 5 items that you go, oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. Oh, that's me. And then it'll give you some solutions on dates, like how to proactively shift that energy. And then there's going to be some that you don't relate with at all. And that's going to be normal. Still, it might be even the ones you don't relate with, the reasons that you're single. I have dubbed them Safar, single for a reason, and these reasons you may see in the people that you are dating. And it might help you have some compassion.
That's a very nice way of seeing things. It make you realize that nobody's perfect, and we're all trying, aren't we? All trying to be better people and to make that connection. And everyone really wants that overall. So I want to ask you a question. You sort of hinted at it just now. Let it go. But I'm going to ask you the question. You said you used to date. Have you met someone now? Are you in a relationship?
Yeah. So I divorced about 8 years ago. And I was really exciting to go. I had never been on any kind of date. For a long time, I was the matchmaker who had never been on a date. And I'd been in a couple of relationships and then marriage. And then I was really excited after my divorce to go online. And I went online and on the apps, and I had a fantastic time. All of the gentlemen I met I was very proactive, like you mentioned, James. I just set the dates. I said, hey, your profile looks good. You know, we were obviously a match, right? So it didn't occur to me that I had to go back and forth. So I just said, hey, you know, your profile looks great. Do you want to meet? I can do Tuesday or Saturday. And all of them would just say yes. And then we would go on these dates. These men were relationship ready. They were kind. They were fun. They were interesting. You know, some of them were like just not interested in me, and some were. And I ended up meeting someone fantastic. And we've been together 7 years now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you got married at 15, did you?
You're too kind.
You mentioned those words. Can you just read those words you just said? Can you, apart from one of them, I'm showing you a list now. See those words there? Can you see them?
Oh, kind, loyal, and fun.
And interesting. Well. They're the words you just used, aren't they? Apart from loyal, you mentioned them.
Yeah.
I think that's what anyone wants in a partner. That's what they want. And everyone gives me the same answer. That's why they're written down.
Oh, I love that. I love that. What a trip.
It is. It's just there because I go through that with my clients every day. And I have to change that list. If anyone's listening to this, often people listen to the podcast and then come to coaching and know how to cheat the answers. And I know they've done that. But I think this is important. Knowing what you want is probably a mirror of what you are, isn't it really? Yeah. It's a reflection of how you see yourself. If you're into fitness, you're naturally going to want someone that's into their fitness. If you are someone that is more chilled out and wants to watch Netflix all day long, then you want someone that does that with you.
Yeah.
So how do you know when someone's the right person?
Well, so I guess, you know, you could say when you feel like you're the right person, right? But what I found is that you just mentioned something really smart. You were talking about, you know, we want that like and like for like, right? But I do also think that some people want the level that they haven't attained yet. Right. So they're drawn to the, you know, they're on the date and they're like, gosh, this guy's amazing. He's not interested in me. I can just tell, like, what do I need to do? And it's like, well, this man is top of his game right now. He's a great communicator. He has done a ton of inner work. You know, he's at the gym every single day. You know, he gets good sleep. He doesn't have any addictions. You know, he is a leader in his organization. So I guess if you want to be attracted to, you know, a man like that to be attracted to you, you got to take an inventory of where you're lacking in those areas, and then go create it yourself.
That's exactly what it is. You have to go and work on yourself to be that. Otherwise, you end up in a situation where people don't think they're good enough for that person. And they assume they're going to be rejected, don't they, before it's even happened. So it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy.
And then they don't do it. Instead of just getting inspired and going, hey, I want to be attractive to that guy. And then going, what do I need to do? All right, well, you know what? I could lose 10 pounds. I could start, working. Perfect example. I did this podcast right when, we all were grounded. And, I was like talking to this amazing guy, and he's a hobbyist and he's interesting and he's a storyteller. And when I got off the podcast with him, I went, goodness, that man is such a great storyteller. And I went immediately and joined a storytelling class to level myself up because I was so impressed. So I think we need to stop, deciding that we're not good enough and just notice when we're drawn to people and for these different characteristics that are really sexy, and then go do that. Go be inspired.
That's such great advice. You have to do that. Live the life the way you want to do it, and then people will be attracted to you as well. I think sexiness itself is subjective, but people are attracted to the same sort of things, aren't they? They can be attracted to intelligence, sense of humor, to looks. They can be attracted to people good with animals, all these sort of things. How could you make yourself more attractive if you are not perhaps the best looking person in the world?
Ooh, I think that I would agree with you that I don't think it has much to do with physical characteristics. I think it has everything to do with energy. So if you are, I don't know. I mean, I would say meditate. That's the thing that I found in my life. Out of all the things that gave me peace, joy that I could exude, out into the world, was deep meditation. So, not connecting in others, going inward every morning for an hour and a half. And that is where I think
an hour and a half every day.
I do. I meditate an hour and a half every single day. I'm telling you, it gave me so much peace. And then I was able to carry that energy to my clients every day. Like, because it takes a lot of energy, energy work when you are dealing with emotions, and I mean, and these wonderful humans that are like, please tell me what isn't working. And sometimes you don't know the answer. Sometimes you're like, I don't see it. I don't know. You are an amazing human, and so the meditation gives me the capacity and the inspiration to go serve. And so I think if a lot of singles could work out their capacity, it's the same thing as being more attractive. It's that energy, and then you're going to these dates, you're meeting these people in a way that says, I want to serve, I want to be here. And so I think it's all energy.
I agree. Energy and the way you portray yourself with positivity, which comes combined with it. So energy combined with positivity, because you can have energy and it can be negative energy. So I think positive energy is a secret, right. But it can be. Everyone's going to hate you. But I think if you vibrate at a vibration that everyone wants to be attracted to, and they see your energy and your sense of your joy of life and the way that you see things and how you can react to that, that's really, really sexy and attractive. And people love that because they want to be part of it. They say, what's that person got going on? I can't wait to find out and be part of that. But going back a little bit, you mentioned there about meditation, and we also talked about how people should copy people that they like and take on the things they want in their own life, and it's because whatever works for someone else. So I try and do that with people that get on my podcast. And 1 second, I've now got to edit this, that I've coughed at last. 1 second. At least I know it's near the end. What I've noticed is many of the guests I get on the podcast do meditation, or they will have a certain daily ritual, or they will journal. And journal I touched upon in virtually all my podcasts because I can't do it. And I can't meditate either, although I do sort of meditate because I've got a virtual reality headset, and sometimes I switch it on, go on the meditation app, and I try and do that. But my mind wanders. I need to do more of that. You can probably see it here. I've got it ready, charged up for once. Because that's what it is there. And I find it's really useful for me to do that. But then I sort of get self-conscious about it and think, well, everyone's going to walk in the room, my children, and see what I'm doing. But never mind. Put that aside. These are things I like to do. So I want to ask you, as well as meditation, do you have any other daily rituals?
Yes, I have a lot.
I thought you might say that.
I do. So, so the very first thing I do is I meditate. I wake up. I prefer guided meditation. I follow a man named Dr. Joe Dispenza, who I completely recommend. I've been to a couple of his retreats, and I feel like he's really making an impact in the world on a high level. So I do his guided meditation for an hour and a half every morning. And then I get up and I have a glass of water with lemon and flush out my organs. And then I immediately go on like a quick 20-minute walk, or I'll do the gym, either one. And then I read. So I'm a morning reader. I prefer books, and actually, how funny is this? The book I'm reading, just started today, is called Own the Day. Own Your
I've
life.
seen that book. Yeah. I've got that on Audible, I think.
Oh, so it's, I just started it, but what's so interesting is that, I really related it back to dating while I was starting it today, because she says, listen, I'm going to tell you how to not own every habit in the world. I'm going to tell you how to optimize one day. All you have to do is prepare yourself, pick one day, and then live the most optimal day possible. And I was so inspired by that one sentence, right? Like, I can't wait to go live what is my most optimal day? I can't even imagine what that looks like, And so it reminded me of dating, let's prepare. Why don't we draw out, write out, what is a great date look like to you? Imagine it, walk yourself through it, envision it, and then go create that date with someone. Usually, our imaginations are, they are realities in some other reality, right? So you can create pretty close to what you imagine. And that's how powerful we are. So
that's great advice. I think that's brilliant. I think, why not create the perfect date? you've got the best chance of success then, haven't you?
Right?
I think being boring and doing the same thing everyone else does, like going for a coffee, is probably the worst thing. There's nothing memorable or special about that.
Oh,
Do
where are you
something
from? What do you do? You know,
yeah, I know. And then it goes on. Then they talk about politics or something after that, and then they
yeah.
wonder why they haven't made a connection. That's what happens.
Yeah, I love this. I know they told us not to talk about this, but let's talk about it.
That's what they do. I had the same conversation every day. People directing them towards positive conversation, things they should talk about to be happy. Right. So don't talk about politics.
That's what I find, right, is that they actually need the language. And that's what I give them in the book. I give them the language on, if your, brother just died from, suicide, and you feel like you're okay to be on a date, but you really don't want to get triggered into a conversation, how do you even answer a question of, tell me about your siblings? You'd find it's hard for people to understand that there's different ways to discuss who you are and share with you who you are without having to tell them exactly what's going on in the moment. Most people feel like they're lying. And I'm like, no, that's not lying. You don't know this person. You may never see this person again.
Yeah. You don't owe them anything.
You probably won't.
It might. I think if anything comes up, any topics of conversation you're not comfortable with, just say, look, to be absolutely honest with you, it's a bit of a tricky subject at the moment. Let's talk about something else for now. And just say that. And be honest, explain to them. And do it with a smile so they don't feel offended and think that you've offended them. That's the worst thing. Otherwise, you go down a pattern of negativity after that point. Or just be open about it. So, well, we'll discuss that another day. How about that? We'll discuss that on date 2. Yeah, discuss that next time. Then they know there'll be a next time. So that really works. Because a lot of people do sabotage dates as well by not showing an interest in seeing them again or even what's going to happen. They do this a lot. They go on a date and they say, well, had a really nice time, but there was no connection, no spark. You didn't bother trying to create one. That's why. Right.
And you know what? You make the thing is that they self-sabotage by just not moving forward.
Yes. Or waiting several days to hear from that person. And in the end, both of them, they're sitting there looking at their phones. Who's not going to make the first move? I'm too keen if I do that. Then no one makes the first move. And then they ghost each other for a week, never know what's going to happen.
Right. I always say this, get to your no quickly. If you are on a mission to find love and have it in your life, get to that yes and no. Who's my yes? Who's my no? Then once you're dating, because you're not dating when you're just in the beginning, once you've met someone, gotten to know them. Yeah. Now, once you're dating, then you're building, right? But until then, it's like, it's fair game. Just get to the dates, get to the information.
Exactly. And have fun with the whole thing.
Yeah.
A lot of people are so frustrated. They don't have fun with this.
Yeah. They don't like dating. The collective consciousness is that dating sucks. And it's hard and people aren't relationship ready. Yet everyone I speak to is awesome, kind, and relationship ready. So where is that disconnect? And you know where it is? It's on bad dates. It's just people that they don't know how to answer good questions. They don't know how to ask good questions. They don't know how to create fun experiences. There's this definition of romance that I am obsessed with lately. And it's a mystery or feeling of excitement, or a quality or feeling of excitement and mystery, a remoteness from everyday life. And I think that's key. How can you meet someone new and create a feeling of remoteness from everyday life? There's something in there.
There really is. That's where fantasy comes into this, though, to some degree. Yeah. But it's not a fantasy that you can't have. It's a fantasy that there's a chance of having. Yeah. So you're working towards that. You're allowed to dream a little bit, aren't you? Yep. You're allowed to distance your life away from that because you're going to be companions as you move forward. And give people a chance and just make sure people realize that dating is supposed to be fun. And if it's not fun, you're doing it wrong.
Yes.
One of my many catchphrases. That's it. I need to have a t-shirt saying that, I think. But I think it's so good that you've got the book out there to teach people, and as much information as there is for people to learn and improve and realize they're not alone and they can just make a few simple tweaks and have the time of their lives, then they can soon meet someone. And there are opportunities everywhere. So Jolene, thank you so much for talking with me today. If someone wants to find out more about you or buy your book, how do they do that?
The book is on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com. And my website is JoleneBeaton.com. And my story is there. I'm also on Instagram. I post a lot of great content on Instagram, which is at JoleneBeaton.com.
Fantastic. I will put a link to the book in the show notes here.
Thank
Although
you.
sometimes it didn't go through to things like iTunes and things, but I'll put it in so anyone goes on the main link, they will see that. So that's wonderful. I know that we could talk for a long, long time, which is great, but it's probably quite early for you today. So thank you so much for that. And then we'll talk again. Have a great rest of the day.
Thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure. Take care.
Thank you so much for listening. I'd love to give you a free copy of my latest book, which you can download right now from my website, jamespreece.com. If you enjoyed this podcast, I'd really appreciate it if you could share the love by taking a few seconds to write a positive review on the iTunes store right now. See you next time.